So I got bored today after work, and I got to looking at this lathe and looking at my ball screws, and I did finally get this shaft off. Turns out, I think it was this one, or it may have been that one. I just had to knock the pin out, and that came out. So this is my ball screw, and it just happened that this thing was perfect, a perfect fit for what was already here. So I had this unbolted. I got to looking at it, and I've got a thrust washer here, a thrust washer on the other side, a bearing in the middle, and it all fit this shaft perfectly. So after I took it all apart and got to looking at it, it was like, hey, this is exactly what I need. So I'm going to have to make a spacer that goes here. I don't have threads here. I found this is a M20 by 1.0 thread, which is a goofy thread that nobody has. Found it on Amazon. I've got two of them coming. They were like 20 bucks. And then I went ahead and looked up this thread, and this is an M12 by 1.0, and the same people had that one. So I've got that on the way. So I've got to figure out a way to make all this work, but this was one really nice and easy way to get this going. So I was really tickled about this. That worked out pretty good. So I'll have this part at least done pretty soon. So obviously I've got a gap here. What I was thinking about doing is taking this, since this is exactly in line with that over there, I was going to make a piece that bolted to this where it would come out and then meet this. And I may actually still do that. So this will unbolt. I thought about taking this off and measuring it. And making something on the lathe to where I know it's nice and squared up, to where this will extend out to this and then make a support that bolts to this. And then I've got to make something that will screw onto this, and I've just kind of got it blocked up right now, but screw onto this here, and I'll have bolts that go through this flange here that will somehow attach to this. So what I think I'm going to do first is I've got a bolt pattern here. There's 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. And I can measure it from this. This is the old carriage. So I've got my bolt hole, bolt hole, bolt hole, bolt hole. And I can measure this and make a plate that sort of fits this. I'm going to have a relief hole here. And let's see. Yep. So right here, oh, there we go. I need a flashlight. You can see, let me get a flashlight. So you can see. I've also been trying to clean up this. That's for another project for my neighbor. There we go. Okay. So, you got lube things there and there, and that hole right there is what you can use to inject it. I've got a manual pump that you pull. It's similar to this that I'd ordered a while back. So you just do this, and it lubes all of these things here. So I've considered taking that for now and installing it below this. And I might even make a little servo motor that will push, not a servo motor, but maybe like an air cylinder or something, that when it's running every so often it would push that lever out. Right now, that's the only way I can think to oil this. I'll see if I can find a better way, but for now, that's kind of the best I've got. So I also took a picture of that thrust bearing since I need another one for over there. I thought it was really fortunate that all of this literally was perfect for this application. So I've already got probably the harder part of that done. So now I'm kind of getting excited about this project. I did this in about 20 minutes. Got home. One of the things that I've learned to do with something like this is I got it home and I started taking it apart, and I started getting irritated because I couldn't get one of these rods out. And I've learned that I'm not in that big of a hurry. So when I get irritated, when I get sort of, annoyed by whatever I'm doing, I just quit. I walk away. I come back to it later with a fresh mind. So, this is the next one that I'm going to have to tackle after that. So I've got a place for an E-clip there and a bearing. And this will go through here like so. So again, I'm going to make a part that will slide onto this, have bolt holes here, and have a flat up here that I can screw into. So I'll have bolts that go down into that. I'll have to measure once I get this right and this right. I'll have to measure the distance that I'm going to need to make sure that's right. So I believe what I'm going to do is find some bearings like this, one here, a bearing, and then another one on the other side, and then I'll have a nut that's on the way to capture all that against whatever I use for here. So fortunately, there's already a machine surface that I can measure to get my OD, and I can slide it in here. I can measure these bolt holes here and bolt right to there. So I'm not going to reuse this, I don't think. I think I'm just going to use my CNC mill to interpolate a new one, or a lathe, I don't know. Probably the mill, since I can go ahead and knock out those holes while it's on it. And I'm not sure what I'm going to make that out of yet either. But anyway, so I'm going to do that. That'll screw into there and capture this somehow. And then back here, I've got this part that came off of that. So that will give me, let's see if it'll let me put it on there. It's not wanting to. Don't want to go for some reason. There's some kind of a gasket. All right. So this will slide on. There we go. Like so. So I'll probably end up having to make something similar back here and then capture this as well. So I'll probably find a bearing, because I don't think this needs a thrust bearing. I think this does. So this side, you've got to have a thrust bearing and all that to keep it from moving side to side, but that's all you really need. So all I've actually got to have over here is a bearing to go on here. But I'll explain that. That made sense. So I'll find a bearing that'll slide on here. I think this is an M20, since the thread down there is M20. So that'll give me a place for a bearing. Find a bearing for this. Again, I think that's an M12, so that'll give me a place for a bearing, give me an OD. So then I've just got to make this piece longer and have a bearing surface for that bearing to slide into, for this to slide into. And then up here, find a bearing that will fit this. I don't think I'm going to use these. I think I'm going to try to find some like these, but for this. And do the same thing that I've got up here. So one of these, a regular bearing, and then a bearing surface. So this on the ID, or I'm sorry, the OD, and then that bearing surface on the ID, and all that'll be good. And now this is where my mount, my motors, and all that kind of stuff is going to work. So what I'll end up doing, I think, if I can, I'm going to try to find part of the reason I'm putting a plate under here So I'll make this plate, and I'll probably just do that on my plasma table. Ooh, I may not do that on my plasma table. I guess I could always weld on some nuts. I don't know. What I may do is the OD on my plasma table and then drill and tap it on the mill. So make sure I get these right on the milling machine. That way I've got a tapped hole. Probably use 1/4 inch plate that will go in here. Once I've got that, actually what I may do is make it out of 1/8 inch plate on my plasma table, bolt it in, and use that to mark a way to mount my NEMA stepper motors. So I'd have a stepper motor mounted here, little pulley, big pulley, and then down here, I think what I'm going to have to do, oops, there we go, is make a bracket that bolts here somehow. The motor will come out this way and face here, and then have little pulley, big pulley, and then that drives this. So if anybody knows where I can find pulleys, stepper motor pulleys and belts and things like that, see this, I don't know if you see that, this kind of stuff. So that goes to the encoder on this lathe, and it's a very, very, very precise setup to make sure it's right. You've got another one down here, so you can see the stepper motor here, big old huge timing pulley, big old timing belt. I need that sort of thing to go on this lathe. So if anybody has a source, please let me know. I'm very interested, because that's going to be one of the next things I've got to do. I've also got to find an encoder, a spindle encoder for this. I've got this. Oops. This is an Acorn CNC, Centroid. So it's the same company that makes that. After I started looking at this, I'm going to unbolt this whole box, I think. This will just go away. That'll give me a little shelf. Yeah, a little shelf for a PC. Probably mount a monitor up here. Mount my VFD up here. Do all this stuff right in here. And that way it will, again, it'll be where I can push this all the way to the wall. I'll put my encoder in here whenever I find one. And I think what I'm going to have to figure out is a way to put a pulley on this, probably mount the encoder itself up in here, and then have a belt that go between it. And I think the pulley has to be the same size here and the same size here, and then you've got to have a belt that goes between them. So that'll be fun to figure out, but I can work on that however I need to. That's later. I just want to see it turn at some point. Let's see. What else? So that's going to be my controller. I'm eventually going to make a sheet metal guard that will bolt down this surface, come out a little bit, and give me a way to enclose this completely. I want to be able to put a really nice coolant, flood coolant on this thing. And so I'm going to try to enclose it as much as I can. I'll have a thing over top. I'll have a door of some kind that slides here. I'll probably use linear rails actually to do that, I think. Now the top, once I get this all figured out and this thing moving, one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed in is the amount of travel. So this slot only gives me a little bit of travel, which I guess is really more than I need. And one of the things that I'm kind of going back and forth on is, do I want to put a tool changer, or a tool post that faces down? So in other words, all my chips get thrown down, or do I want the opposite of that, like a standard lathe? I think I'll start out with a standard lathe tool post for now. More or less make this a, tool room lathe, kind of like the Haas lathes. Oh shoot, I just dropped that. Where'd that go? Anyway. Shoot, what do I do with that? So what I'm thinking is these are precision surfaces here and here. They've been machined. I think what I'm going to do, instead of putting the carriage or the top thing back on here, I think I'm going to put linear rails here and here, and then make a plate that will sit on out of maybe 1/2-inch plate. I don't know. I hadn't figured that out quite yet. And it'll actually ride back and forth on those linear rails, and this is just going to move it back and forth somehow. So I don't know if I want to use this dovetail like the original lathe used. I think I'm just going to use these surfaces, drill and tap, and mount my linear rails directly into this. Anybody has a better idea, please let me know. So I've got the this thing here. So, I mean, I can reuse it if I really want to, but I'm not really sure I want to. I just don't know that, I don't know. I'm just not 100%. I don't know. I'll figure that one out too. But if I could find some 1/2-inch plate or maybe some 1/4-inch plate and stack it and weld it together, put slots in it and weld into the slots, that way it kind of makes it one 2 or 1/2-inch plate. Gives it some rigidity, and then figure out a way to mount me a tool post. You know, the tool post on this doesn't have to be anything in particular, but I'll probably end up buying another one of these BSA or BXA mounts. I've already got one on this, so I'll probably go with the same thing since I've already got all this tooling for this lathe. I could also use the tool post. Where'd it go? Oh, shoot. Okay, I had a tool post for this thing somewhere. There it is. I could also use this, but what I'll end up having to do is make a spacer block of some kind to space this up, because I won't be using that at all. So this, if I do use this, will be sitting basically spaced up directly on it. That may be my quickest path to get this running, and I wouldn't have to drill this. So I don't know. I'll figure that out. One of the things I've also considered is you've got these that I guess is holding, kind of clamping this to this surface. I thought about making something here that has bearings that roll on this surface. So, you know, kind of take away the, shoot, I don't know what you call it. Take away the friction, make this where this will move easier. So, I don't know. I'm still working on that one, working that out. So, but anyway, I'm pretty close to having a roller, whatever you call this thing, ball screw on this axis. And then it won't take me another weekend probably to have one on this axis. It's probably going to be about a week before I get my screws or my nuts that go on here. So, and I considered making one. I've got a lathe, but I don't know, for 40 bucks, I don't have, that's a really fine thread, and I don't think I actually have a really fine thread internal, internal threading insert anywhere. I've got a thread boring thing somewhere in here. I may have put it over there on my CNC mill. So, I may still try to make it. I don't know. I just spent 50 bucks to get those other ones on the way, so I'll probably just leave well enough alone. Let those come in. It'll take me that long to get all this other stuff right anyway. So, again, I think I am going to utilize this to make something that comes out here to meet this, and then have a support that comes down here, drill and tap, bolt to that. That way this will be nice and in line. I think I will unscrew these bolts and take this rack off of here. I may use that for another project somewhere else. I don't know, but I probably will. I don't really want to just leave it there. So yeah, I'll probably take that off and salvage that gear to use with it as well. So I'll probably do that. I've got some stuff I want to automate at work, and I actually need a rack and pinion for that, so that would actually be a good use for that. But yeah, I don't think it'll be too long before I can at least jog this around. And once I do that, I'm going to have a guard that I'll probably bend at work, where all of them, you know, something to keep all of the splash here and sliding down into that. Let's see, what else am I going to do? I've actually got a manual brake. I may figure out a way to put an air cylinder on that. So have a solenoid where if I need to brake it, I can do like an e-stop and it pushes that down and brakes everything, stops it all. I'll probably take the pedal off, but use the mechanism itself, because I think that's only connected up there. So I could probably take it loose down here and just have a lever and an air cylinder that pushes that down. I'm going to try to keep this as close this way as I possibly can. I'm also going to probably make when I put the top on this, I'm going to try to find an I-beam or something similar to where I can roll here, have a door of some kind that'll open. So say I've got something really long or something that's hard to handle, I can actually use it to rig whatever part into the machine. So have, you know, something that rolls along the top. You know, if I want to pick up the lathe chuck, I can use it to pick the chuck up and roll it out and get it where I can get to it. You know, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to incorporate all of this into this lathe if I can. So that'll give me a way to load heavier stuff, because you see how tight this is. There's my CNC mill. There's my lathe. I've only got about 3-4 feet maybe right here. So it's not like I can really get in here and load it from the front. So I think I'll try to figure out a way, you know, little small stuff load from here. And I'll try to make doors that maybe roll this way and this way. So I'll probably do some linear rails or something similar where it will roll along here, and then the doors themselves will have something that, you know, redirects everything to there. So I'll probably use that lip to mount the doors on, and then make some kind of skeleton that comes up. So I'll have a frame that comes up to there. Use this edge on this thing to pick up something. So I'll probably just bend a piece that goes through there and follows that. So, you know, have a lip this way that matches this and bolts down into it, but that picks this up to the level of the door. So I'm probably going to put a door right about to the top of that. So head level, I guess. I probably will pick this up off the ground from where it's at too. So it's a little easier to, you know, reach. Oops, I keep hitting buttons and get to this. I'll probably do away with this. I'll probably, I think this had that's used to go on the tool post, so that was your coolant. I'm probably going to do something different with that as well. And I actually want to figure out a way to do through tool coolant on this. So figure out a way to do a tool holder that holds tools that, you know, if I'm drilling, it'll spray coolant in through the drill itself. So when you're drilling, it's actually flushing the chips out. I mean, why not? So, yeah. But, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I think this is going to be a neat little project. So, expensive. I mean, it really worked out. I don't think I could have asked for it to work out any better on this. Everything worked out beautifully for this mount. So that gives me a lot of hope for the rest of this project. That was a great start. So figuring out how to do this, I mean, I could have done this, but this is already lined up. That's already lined up. So the work's kind of already done for me in a way. I just wish my ball screw was a little longer. Granted, you know, I guess it's better being a little short than a little long. I guess I could have cut it off, but you know, you would think they would put a center hole in this, but there's no center. So I would have to chuck this in like a 5C collet, drill and tap a center in this to do any work on this if I had to modify it. So I'm kind of glad it's a little bit shorter. It's a little bit less work for me. I'll just have to make a bracket that comes out here. So no biggie. Yeah, what I think I can do, you know, what I'll do, now that I think about it, I've got an edge here. I'll clean all this up. I'll take a piece of stock. Oops. Oh, shoot. I'll turn an edge to where it indexes into this. I'll take this piece off, drill and tap a bolt pattern that will line up. Or I may make another one of these, but bigger around to where it gives me a nice big flange to work with. If I can do that, then that'll give me something that I can put in and register to this surface. And then I'll go down here and measure somehow from probably this surface to something on this. I may take a 1, 2, 3 block, lay on this, measure from the top of the 1, 2, 3 block to here somehow. Take something like one of these right here. So you put that on there. The arm will articulate and allow me to use a dial indicator or a test indicator to find my top surface of this and match it with the top surface of this. So I'll come all the way to this side, get it as close as I can, and then just measure, 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 and keep doing that until it's right. So all I've got to do is make a piece that indexes off of here, comes out here, this exact distance that I need it to come out, has a ID for a bearing that fits this. That'll hold this in place, and then somehow figure out a way to make it adjust up or down and in and out in order to get this perfect, and then cinch everything down. So yeah, that won't be that bad. I'll have this up and running pretty quick. And I may, temporarily, just to see this thing run, put me a NEMA motor on here to play with. Just do a direct couple and some kind of a temporary mount over there. I don't know how much force is required to move this forward and backwards. So I'm probably going to gear that down quite a bit. That's a pretty beefy ball screw, so I think it's okay. And I'm going to do whatever I can to mitigate the force on this going, you know, back and forth. That's why I thought about putting the bearings down here to let it ride on that, to make it a little bit better surface. I don't know. But yeah, there we go. So if anybody has any ideas, I am all ears. That's going to be interesting. But the more I get into this and the more I play with this, the more it's like, hey, I can do that. Hey, I can do that. You know, you look at a project like this, and I've been staring at this thing for months and just hadn't had time to mess with it. It was actually going to be a project that I put off until I got my press brake running, which I hadn't even got started on yet. And it was a little cold outside today, and I've been home working on something else and came out here and started looking at it and thinking about it. And you know, it's like, well, shoot, I can do this and I can do that and I can do that. And now the more I mess with this, the more ideas I get about how to fix this the way I want it. So that's actually pretty cool. It's working out pretty good, I think. So anyway, you guys have a good day. Hope it inspires somebody to do something themselves. So anyway, have a good day. Bye.